All right, so for this assignment, basically you guys are going to be practicing using functions, and you're going to be practicing using selection and repetition. So for this first one, you need a script that's going to include a function that accepts at least 3 parameters. The first parameter should be text. I can't even read all that because our faces are in the way. Just here, let me see if I can. There. Okay. So the first parameter should be text that you're going to display back using echo. Second and third should be CSS, and you can decide what styles that you want to pass. So I did put an example here, but you do not have to use the exact same thing I did, okay? You can do something completely different as long as you meet these requirements. So you can see that I called my function print BR, I got text, and then the CSS I decided to pass is color and size. So if you didn't want to pass color and size, you can do font family. I mean, you can do whatever you want for the CSS. Okay, if you wanted to pass padding or background color, it doesn't matter to me. Okay. The second 2 parameters should be something for CSS. So here I've got an echo, and I'm using the span to basically style the text that I passed. So here's my text variable right in the middle of this. I got an opening span tag, and you'll see that I've got style equals. And then the way you have to do your CSS is after style equals, you have to put stuff in double quotes. I mean, that's kind of one of those HTML rules. Okay, so I start this with double quotes, but PHP is going to get kind of confused if I do nested double quotes. So this / double quote is an escape character that basically tells PHP, oh, this is a new set of double quotes, okay, that it should count this as new. Okay, then you can see I've got my CSS rule color colon, and then I'm pulling the color that got passed. And then I have a semicolon. Okay, so if I would have passed red, this would be color colon red. Okay, then I got a semicolon, font dash size colon, that's your rule. And then I'm passing the size as a variable. So it could have been 14 point or 16 point. Okay. And then I've got the / double quote to end that little double quote sequence for style. Then I have a dot, which is my concatenation operator. $text is the text value that I passed. I have another concatenation operator, and then I've got a closing span and a break. So the reason I have to concatenate in here is because this is all considered a text string. And then I'm trying to print out a variable, okay? And so they're considered different data types, and you have to concatenate with that period. So here are my function calls. So I'm sending this little phrase, red as a ruby. That's what's going to get printed out. Okay, I'm passing red and 14 point. So red is going to be color, 14 point is going to be size. Okay, so it'll come in here, put red here, 14 point here, put the little phrase here. Okay, and then it'll come down and do green as an emerald. Green comes in here for the color, 20 point comes in here. Okay, so the only thing that's kind of weird about this is the escape characters we have to use to get those extra double quotes in there. And then this is what it looks like when it actually displays in the browser, and that is the code that is displaying. Okay, so this is my PHP. And remember, it's server side. So when you see the results in the browser, if I right click and I say view source code, this is the source code that I see. So you can see that this is where I had that slash double quote, and it did put the double quote in here. Okay, and I had the slash double quote here, and it put the double quote there. And it replaced the dollar color with red, and it replaced the dollar size with 14 point. And then dollar text, it replaced with my phrase. Does that make sense? Okay, so you guys are going to have to do something similar. If you want to do the exact same as me, that is okay. If you want to change it up and do a different phrase, if you want to pass different CSS, that is perfectly fine. Okay? So all I'm requiring is that you have some kind of text phrase and that you pass two different things for CSS. So totally up to you what you want to do. So for this next one, we're going to call it compare.php. So I should mention, like for this first one, there is no HTML in here. I did not include doc type at the top. This is the entire file. So when you're naming something PHP, you aren't going to have HTML showing. Okay? It's going to be entirely PHP. Any HTML that you want in the page, you can echo to the page. Okay? So for this one, you're going to assign values to two variables. And then you're going to use if statements and comparison operators to test whether the first value is the same as the second, less than the second, greater than the second, or less than or equal to the second. Okay, so you declare two variables. You can put numbers right into them. And then you're going to use a bunch of if statements to run the comparison. You're going to print the result of each test to the browser. And then you're going to change the values assigned to your test variables and run the script again just to make sure it works right. So here's my sample output. So the first time I ran it, my number 1 was equal to 100, number 2 was equal to 101. Okay, so my first test, it did an if to see if they were equal. And so I'm printing something if they're equal or not equal. So what that tells you is you need to use an if else. So I would say if dollar number 1 equal dollar number 2, if that's true, I'm going to print a message. Else, I'm going to print a message that they're not equal, and that is the message that got printed. Okay, this is saying they're not equal. Okay. Then the next test, I'm going to say if dollar number 1 is less than dollar number 2, then I'm going to print one thing. Else, I'm going to print a different message. And so in this case, I was checking to see if it was less than, and number 1 is less than number 2. So when it did the if, that was true. So it printed it out. Okay, then my next one, it's going to check to see if number 1 is greater than the second one. So again, it's like an if, is number 1 greater than number 2? If it is, I print one message. If it's not, I print a different one. Okay, does that make sense? So these are going to be if-else statements. That's the only way you can print one thing if it's true or one thing if it's false. And then I kept the same code. I just changed the value for number 1 and number 2. Okay, and I'm trying to trick it now because I made them the same. so basically, this is just showing you what the results were for those exact same tests. Okay, so that's all you have to do for exercise 2. So exercise 3 is going to be the tricky one. because what you need to do is create a temperature table using a loop. And so you're going to give the script a starting Celsius value of 0. And then you're going to calculate the Fahrenheit. And here is the formula to calculate Fahrenheit. So I'm giving that to you guys. The challenge with this is to get everything to line up properly in your output. And the best way to do this is to use table tags. So if I was going to code this on your echo statements, I would probably do something like echo table. And then we'd have our heading. And Celsius is a heading. So this does require that you remember how to key in those table tags. And then, actually this all has to be in a row. So this would be my first row. Okay. That would be done above the loop, okay, because you don't want that part repeating. Then you get into the loop and you have to loop through 10 times. So that would print out probably above there, you'd have Celsius that you would be setting to 0. And then you'd have your while loop, and you'd have some kind of a counter that you're also going to set to 0. And then you're going to have your while loop, and you'll say, while the counter is less than 10. So in here, your echo statements, inside this loop, this is where you're going to have to calculate Fahrenheit. Okay, so I would probably do that next. And then you're going to have an echo that prints that out. And so this one, you're going to have a row. And then you'll have your table detail. And then you would have your Celsius. And because that's a variable, we have to do the little concatenator. And that would be the end of that column. And now you'd have to start another column and concatenate that with Fahrenheit. Okay, and then we would end off that column and end off that row. Okay, and then we do have to increment Celsius, and it looks like we're incrementing by 5. So we would say Celsius plus equal 5. You could also do Celsius equals Celsius plus 5, however you wanted to code that. And we have to increase our counter by 1. Okay, so that pretty much should take care of all of the rows. Once you pop out of the loop, then you would want to close off your table, because your table now has all of the rows. It's got the beginning table, but you do not have your ending table in. So you would want to put in an ending table tag. So the only other thing you'd probably want to do in here is maybe set some widths for your columns. And that would be probably done up here in the headings where you would have a style equals width, colon, and you guys can determine what those widths are because it's just sticking CSS inside. Like I probably would not make the table 100% because this is all the data in it. So it's kind of silly to make it the width of your screen. So I would probably say style equals width and make it like 50, something like that. And then I might do kind of the same thing over for each heading and make each of those 50%. Okay, so, you know, half of the table will be Celsius, half will be Fahrenheit. So you guys can kind of figure that out, how you want to align everything up. But that's basically how you would have to code that. And you definitely are going to want to test that in Dev Server, especially the formatting, how you set up those columns and for widths and stuff, because it's really messing around with that formatting that takes all of the time. Okay, and once you have tested all of these in the Dev Server, and then you can link those pages into your assignment page, go into Moodle, open the Dropbox, and tell me you're done. Okay, and for this kind of code, these programs are super short, so you probably could just do them right in Dev Server. So I'm going to take this little code example, and we're going to put it right in here. And we do need to add the PHP at the top and a little code at the bottom so it knows when it begins and ends. Okay. And if we just run it like this, it is going to get an error because we have a double quote here and here, which is good. But then we have nested ones inside, which it does not like. So we're going to add the slash, which is our little escape character. And then when we interpret, we have a table with all of those rows. Now we're going to adjust the alignment of the numbers so that they are right aligned. And to do that, we're going to put that in our row. So we're going to add style equals. And this is going to be a nested double quote, so we're going to do that escape. And we want text align colon right. And then we'll do that little escape double quote again. And let's run this. Now that pops the numbers over to the right, which looks really good for the decimals. But our headings now are centered. So I'm going to take this code and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it up here in the row for my headers. And then I'm going to run it again. Okay, and now you can see that it all lines up kind of nicely. And if you wanted to offset those headings a little bit, I mean, you could add some color to it. Let's see, I just could say color purple. And could even try shadowing. And then we'll see how that looks. Okay. Actually, I don't like the shadow there, but you guys can play around with it, make it look however you want. The important thing here is that you have the Celsius and Fahrenheit table. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Once everything looks good, make sure that you put this in a web page. Your web page is not going to have any HTML in it. Okay? It should just have the PHP. And you are going to name this thing tempconvert.php. Okay? And then you're going to connect it to your assignments page and go into Moodle and tell me you're done.